Welcome to Ecotopia U Media. I'm your host, Melissa McGinnis, joined by my co-host, Tom Wright. We are here in Los Angeles today at the CRRA conference, and it's a very special time right now. We have a very special guest with us, Captain Moore. It's so great to finally meet you.
Oh, I'm glad to be with you, especially since you're a fellow Long Beachian.
We're fellow Long Beachians. That's another story. Can't wait to come down and visit you in Long Beach. But tell us what you do.
Well, I'm the skipper of the oceanographic research vessel Algeta, and in 1997 I was returning from Honolulu after competing in the Transpac race, which is on right now from LA to Honolulu. It's a one-way race. You go with the trade winds to Honolulu, and then you have to come up and get the northwesterlies to get back to the coast of California. And I took a shortcut in 97, which everyone's talking about now because we've got a new El Nino coming. They're claiming is going to be as big as the one in 97. The one in 97 was huge, and what El Nino did in the Central Pacific was to make it super calm. And that meant that the winds were very light for a whole week of transit back to Los Angeles from Honolulu, and that fact made any plastic that was just kind of floating below the surface float right up to the top. So I was able to come on deck and wait just a few minutes and see a piece of plastic for an entire week. And it wasn't an aha moment, so, well, I've discovered the Great Pacific Garbage Gyre, you know. This wasn't what happened. It was like, wait a minute, I'm out in the middle of the ocean, as far from land as you can get anywhere on the planet, and I'm seeing civilization here. It doesn't make sense. I sailed in '61 to Hawaii with my dad, and we never saw a piece of trash. Now you can't sail to Hawaii without seeing gobs of it. So, but in '97 it wasn't that bad. It was just a kind of an inkling that there's something going on here. So I was working with marine researchers and developed a plan to go back and sample that area, and I found, to our shock and dismay, after we analyzed our samples, that there was 6 times as much plastic on the surface there as there was zooplankton, the food of the ocean. So this was explosive. It created a whole new field of research, plastic pollution of the marine environment. And we've been following up on that ever since, and just made our 15-year retrospective voyage out there last summer. So we were just getting back into Long Beach at this time last summer.
So you mentioned before we started rolling that you're kind of the bad news bear, if you will. This is why we need zero waste. So let's really talk about the problem. I mean, in the last 15 years, how much worse has it even gotten?
Well, a paper was just published by Jenna Jembeck, sponsored by the Ocean Conservancy, that found, looking at countries around the world, that there's about 8 million tons a year of plastic going into the ocean today.
8 million tons.
8 million tons a year.
A year.
That's 8 million times 2,000.
But
wow.
Would you like to see 80 million tons a year going in?
Uh-oh.
That paper predicted that in 10 years, if we do nothing, it'll be 10 times worse. 80 million tons a year. Well, when I started out in 1997 looking at this problem, it wasn't that bad. And so the factor of 10 every 10 years is what we're looking at. It's called a geometrical progression. So it's now 100 times worse than what I discovered in 1997. But in 2025, it'll be 1,000 times worse. So I will have been witness to watching my ocean, the ocean I love, the ocean I surf in, dive in, swim in, sail in, filled up with plastic by 1,000-fold compared to when I discovered the garbage gyre in 1997 in just 30 years. Now that to me is shock and awe, and a very negative shock and awe. But it's not simply an aesthetic problem. It's not that our beautiful ocean habitat is made ugly by trash. It's that it's killing, I believe, more animals than climate change. It's strangling them. It's feeding them non-nutritive food. It's bringing in exotic species that outcompete them. It's a horrible, it's just the devil incarnate, clothed as innocent discards. It's a shame. And we can't really practically go out and clean up the ocean. It's just too huge. I mean, imagine vacuuming from Tierra del Fuego to northern Canada, the surface of the dirt. You know, that would be a huge job. Well, the ocean is average 2 miles deep. The stuff is throughout the water column. You can't go out there and clean it up. So we've got to stop at the source, and that is zero waste.
Zero waste. And just for the viewers, the image of a garbage patch, which is given out by the media at large, that's probably not the correct information.
No,
it's the tip of the iceberg, I would assume.
Well, you know,
what's it more like when you're out there?
It's dispersed.
It's dispersed.
And a few years back, I could stand on the bow with a clicker and get about 10 per minute. Now it's got to where I can't even click fast enough.
Okay.
And
when you trawl, how deep are you?
We're only about 20 centimeters deep. But we had to limit our trawls to half an hour. The net was filling up.
Wow.
We couldn't, even in the middle of the ocean. This is as far from civilization as you can get anywhere on Earth. It's a sad, sad commentary, not only on us and what we've done, but on the fact that we've exported this lifestyle to Asia. We've got the Chinese packaging everything in plastic, and they don't have even the bad ways to get rid of it, which is incineration and landfilling. They just have it on the side of the road. I mean, in Egypt, I heard that the center divider between two-way traffic is trash. People just drive along and throw their trash out the window in bags, and it's in the middle of the road. So you've got instead of having those dividers like we have, you've got a trash divider. So this is what's happening around the world. We've exported this throwaway lifestyle, and the folks that we've exported it to don't have anywhere near the infrastructure. As inadequate as ours is, they have less. Sad, sad situation. And that's why Jenna Jambeck and her peers, published in Science, a very reputable peer-reviewed journal, predicted that if nothing is done, that 8 million tons a year that's going in the ocean will be 80 million tons by 2025.
Do you have any particular avenues that you feel where the solution, in zero waste being a broad solution, or more like a theoretical solution, do you have a perspective on particular actions, particular legislations? Go ahead.
I'm not a big fan of this concept of personal responsibility, because it just can't be the focus of a population that's underemployed and desperate for survival. They're not going to spend a lot of time looking for a trash bin. The idea that I think most resonates with me is local production of food, shelter, clothing, and energy. Regional reliance, relying on the community. As Paul Conant said in his keynote speech today at the conference, we've got to start creating small villages within the anonymous city of reliant, smart, eco-conscious people that are producing their own food, their own clothing, their own shelter, and their own energy. We can do this. We have the technology now. That's the great thing about the internet. If you don't know how to make a solar cooker, you can find a solar cooker on the internet. If you don't know how to make a composting toilet, you can make a composting toilet, and you can find ways to do it on the internet. We can create the kind of infrastructure we need to withdraw from the polluting industry that relies on faraway systems. Your food comes from far away. In the winter, we get our grapes from Chile. Your energy comes from far away. We just had a big blowout in Long Beach. Edison Company is supplying energy. I make a megawatt. I've got panels on my house now. I make a megawatt per month on my house. And in my boat, I make a kilowatt of solar energy. So I power my desalinization unit with 12-volt electricity from the sun. So I'm unlimited range.
This is on your boat?
On my research vessel, I can go anywhere for as long as I want, because I can make water with solar energy. So we have the technology. We have these creative people. We have these apps, frankly. I just downloaded the new Close 5 app, which allows you to browse people that want to sell stuff in your neighborhood, and you can sell stuff too. We want to have this localized regional reliance. We want to rely on our brothers and sisters in our local area, create a true community, have some love, have some fun, have some friendship amongst our peers that care, because we've been dealt a stacked deck. This deck that we've been dealt doesn't have a solution. It's playing catch up, constantly playing catch up. We do a little bit here, a little bit there, and it gets worse. Since Rio, CO2 has gone up in the atmosphere.
He's referring to the conference, the government conference in Rio de Janeiro.
United Nations is great at writing draft proposals. They capture all the relevant data, but when it comes to action, it requires you and me. And that's where it's going to happen. And it's only going to happen if you trust me to be your brother, to be your friend, to be your community leader that is going to take the heat when people come down on us and say, look, how come you're not propelling the economy? How come you're not shopping Walmart? How come you're not making jobs? I said, sorry about that, but we are fully employed. We are fully employed, taking care of ourselves, and we're taking care of the planet at the same time.
Now in Long Beach, you're walking your talk. You've got some gardens going on that. Can you tell us a little bit, and also historically, tell us a little bit, because this is not just new for you.
No. We in Long Beach, we suffered a serious problem with vacant lots, even before the riots. But after the riots, we had whole corridors of burned out properties. And the City Council, Ray Gerbinski and Alan Lowenthal, when he was a city councilman, now he's our senator, our assembly member in Washington, D.C. But he started as a city councilman member in Long Beach, and they started what they call the Vacant Lot Task Force. And I joined the Vacant Lot Task Force to try to figure out what to do with these vacant lots that were growing weeds, okay? And looking bad for Long Beach. And what we decided was there was a number of things that could be done from a recreational standpoint, the sports and so on and so forth. But my focus was on the community gardens, because since 1974, I'd been growing organically in my own house. And wherever I lived, I would have a community, not a community garden, but an organic garden on my dirt that I had wherever I was living. And I knew that we could do this in Long Beach. I knew that we could grow organically in Long Beach. So I said, out of that task force, very little got done except for me. I started Long Beach Organic, which turned the vacant lots into organic gardens. We got some help from city identifying lots where we could do this. Our first one was still there, First and Elm, right in the center of all the high rises in downtown Long Beach. It's a beautiful community garden. And
Ryan, our producer, used to throw rocks on that lot there.
they filmed. Was it Lethal Weapon 4 or something there? And we actually got some money because they burned our plants by throwing all those incendiaries there when they were filming there at the old gas station they built a phony gas station in the parking lot and then blew it up. And burned our plants. Yeah. But so now I've even shrunk that initiative to the home farm. And I have now gotten a permit from the county agricultural commissioner. I'm organic. Registered, and I sell to my neighbors out of my home. And I've got a 60-year-old avocado. I'm born and raised in the same home. I've lived all over Long Beach, but after my parents died, I moved back into the family home. And that has a 60-year-old avocado tree. It's got, I grow bananas. I grow chocolate pudding fruit, the chocolate persimmon. I grow passion fruit. I grow both Mexican and Hawaiian papayas. I grow guavas, 7 varieties. I grow lettuces, tomatoes, eggplant, you name it, Brussels sprouts. And I have a price list on a blackboard that I hang from 2 posts that I put in my front yard right behind the fence. And I have a little greenhouse there I start my seedlings in, not made out of plastic. It's all glass and aluminum. And people coming by can purchase the excess, family first. I feed my family first, but the rest is for sale to the local community. And I beat, sometimes I beat, I know I beat farmers market prices a lot of the time. And instead of the 60-mile diet or the 60-kilometer diet, I've got the 60-pace diet. You know, you just walk down the corner house and come and pick it up and eat it.
For a man who has such great sea legs, you're pretty grounded.
Well, the boat's right across the street.
Oh,
I do get stir crazy a little bit and have to get on the ocean. I definitely have to get on the ocean because the ocean, you've got the entire 360-degree horizon. There's no limits. And it's the largest habitat we have. So I've become the spokesperson for a part of that habitat. It's just that nobody else goes there. I've been there 10 times. I've hung out in this Great Pacific Garbage Gyre, studied it, published papers about it, given talks about it. And I actually like the place. It's like an oceanic desert. It's King Neptune's desert nursery. A lot of the juvenile turtles go there to grow up. It's an amazing place. But I'm, out of the 7+ billion people on the planet, I'm the only one speaking for that area. And yet the habitat there is larger than the habitat in the entire United States. So it puts me in a very unique position. I mean, you have a right from a scientist, from someone who's trying to capture your attention, to expect some modesty, you know, a little bit of, just withdrawal from the spotlight. But it's hard for me to do that when I'm the only person on the whole planet speaking for an area that's so large. I mean, it seems to drive me almost like the ancient mariner that was compelled to tell about the albatross. I'm now involved in this group that's being started here at the Zero Waste Conference to save the albatross from all this plastic pollution, because they're the vultures of the ocean. They go around harvesting this plastic, consuming it, and regurgitating it into their chicks. You know, a baby chick, you know, says to the mother, "I'm hungry." It says, "Okay, honey, just a minute," and barfs into the baby chick. It's not exactly what we think about as motherly love, but this is motherly love in albatross world. And that motherly love is now lethal to thousands of chicks on Midway Island, CRRA Atoll, Laysan Island. The name Laysan comes from the Laysan albatross. So we're in a very nice group of people here, and in Long Beach we're developing a very nice group of people that are locally centered and want to create a local economy. And I think that's probably your question that I've now spoken on at length, was what do I think is really the way to combat all this pollution in the ocean. And I do think it is through the creation of sustainable local economies.
Is the antithesis lifestyle. You're flipping the lifestyle from this macro global concern to just get local stupid.
There are many problems in doing that. I love travel. I think everyone should learn the world. But the carbon footprint of an airplane is horrendous, and the skies are being polluted terribly. So I'm working with folks that have started the Sail Transport Network. We believe we can start transporting people by sea under sail, and goods. You know, that coffee doesn't need to get from point A to point D in 2 days. I mean, you can take a long time to get your coffee to market. Same thing with chocolate. You know, same thing with wine. There's a lot of things we can transport that don't have to be thrown on a 747 and get there the next day. So there's some some de-evolution, but we're also highly embracing technology. We believe in truly the liberating potential of technology to liberate us from toil. We can't do that in an atmosphere where jobs are controlled. These so-called job creators are actually the job controllers. They're the ones that are not letting people work because they've got so many robots. Well, sure, you don't have to pay unemployment, you don't have to pay sick time, you don't have to set up a pension or a retirement fund. Robots are great. They solve a lot of the manufacturer's problems, except for one thing: they don't provide jobs. Local economy is the only way we're going to be able to provide jobs. And that's the future. I mean, we can see it in a nutshell. Books are coming out now about the robots, and books are coming out about guaranteed annual income, about basically creating Social Security for everybody, not just waiting until you're 65. So the 1%'s got some dues to pay, and who's going to make them pay them is still an open question.
Especially since they seem to be literally in charge.
Oh yes, there's no question, but by withdrawing, see, that's not a violent overthrow. We can't envision a violent overthrow of an all-powerful system. It doesn't make any sense. It's not the old Russian Revolution of 1917. This is a subversion of the status quo through local self-reliance, and it's not going to happen overnight. You know, we just hope it happens in time to prevent catastrophic failure of the planetary systems that keep us alive.
I think it's really well said. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry to monopolize the dialogue here, but I've been given so many interviews. I've done this so much that I've got it down now. So I'm just laying it on.
We appreciate your information and your passion,
I don't think we do.
And I think you're a really
please monopolize. You know?
You're a blessing and a resource to not just your community but the planet at large.
And then, just the scope of your thinking, the fact that you are thinking large and at the same time thinking small.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very unusual, and it's a pleasure to hear you
think
speak.
globally, act locally, for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you for sitting with us and for all your work that you do.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for inviting me for the interview.
Thank you.
So it's fun, and I hope I see you again.
Are you kidding me? I'm going to come to your blackboard.
You got to check me out.